So what we're talking about today is our blueberries and some care. And what I like to do going into fall is do my fertilization. Again, we're the first week of fall. Now, a lot of our neighbors ask about things like this, where they have browning of the leaves. Here's another example of something that I get a lot of questions on. The leaves are turning red. So if you've been following the channel, you know that last month we took a trip to Europe. The garden basically was out here on its own. And that to me was an example of the resilience of the garden. So now I've always said to you that one thing that I don't do well, and that's grow in pots. And you see all my blueberry cuttings are in pots. So going back to my point, during that time we were on vacation, the pots were drying out. So that's transpiration. When the bush can't pull up water from the roots, it's going to close the stomata on the leaves, and that's going to cause the sun to scorch the leaves. This is the same example here, and you can see that it's worse from here going all the way down, then it gets a little better. This is a southern high bush, and this is my sweetheart. So they're used to this hot weather, but they like to have that moisture. Now, as we come down here, these are my channelers going into their third year grown from seed, and I just wanted to see what they would do so I can have that experience to pass that on to you guys. The channelers are slightly different from southern high bushes in that they turn a nice red during the fall. This is new growth here, and that's going to be a nice fall autumn red. 17 blueberry bushes in pots. Our O'Neill is struggling the worst. What I did was when I was weed eating, I chopped that up maybe a month or two ago, and I just kind of got lazy and never got back to doing it. So our O'Neill dried out more than the other ones. So what we're gonna do today is go ahead and up pot this. We're gonna do a check of our soil. We're gonna check our pH, and then we're gonna show you how we mix our soils for our blueberry bushes. This is what we're gonna be up potting to, and these are 3-gallon containers that I picked up from Lowe's, and these are perfect for up potting our blueberry bushes. Look at how much room we're gonna have for growth in there. And you take into account now our blueberry bushes roots, they like to spread rather than go deep. So even with this, you can see where the roots are starting to come out the bottom, but look at all the fibrous roots down here. We're gonna sit this down here for now. And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna check the pH of the soil on here. And that means breaking out our pH meter. Now this thing compares pretty close to my Blue Lab, and I'm gonna use this today in testing our pH. Let me sit this down for a second. Because first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure our calibrations are correct. We're gonna start by turning our probe on. So it has a solution in it. That probe has to stay submerged in that solution. And we want distilled water to do a check between each of our pH readings. We got a pH reading of 4, and that's acidic. We got a pH reading of a 7.0, and that's a neutral, that's right in between. And we got a pH reading of a 10. So this is how we're gonna check the reading of our pH meter. This is just distilled water, and that's gonna have a pH on average about a 7. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and rinse our probe off. This is distilled water, so we should be on average around a 7 on the pH. And we'll let it settle in. And there we go. And we'll just lock that in, 6, 9, 7. You see that has the hold on it. And then we'll go to our pH of 4 to start. And this is our acidic solution. We'll sit that there. This is our pH of 7, and that's neutral. And this is our pH of 10, which is alkaline. Generally, the sweet spot for our blueberry bushes is going to be a 4.5 to a 5.5. We're going to start first with our acidic solution. And what we're doing now is we're just checking the calibrations to make sure that our readings are correct. So we're at 4.0. Lock that in. And remember, this is our acidic solution, 4.0. Put that back into our distilled water to rinse it off. And then we're gonna go all the way extreme to the 10 just to see how the change is. We'll unlock our pen, and then we'll go over to our 10 solution, which is alkaline. There you go. Quick reading. Lock it in, go back, rinse our solution off. Now we're gonna go to our neutral. Now your pH readings are gonna be anywhere from a 0 to a 14, 7 being the neutral. So we'll take the lock off, and then we'll go check our neutral. And there we go. Lock it in. In terms of our pH, which is our parts of hydrogen or percentage of hydrogen ions, that's what we're determining what's going to be in our soil mix when we mix this stuff together. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put the cap back on these since we know that everything is registering. Now it's a perfect temperature this morning to be checking the pH. The temperature is right around, matter of fact, let me show you what the temperature is on here. This reads a 77.9, so this is a good temperature to check our readings. Our pH meter also compensates for the temperature of the solution as well as the ambient temperature out. So we're gonna bring our digger tool out, because what it is, this probe on the end is glass. So what we're gonna do is when we stick this down into the soil, this is something to protect that glass. We're gonna test all of our substances. What we're gonna do is we wanna see what our compost reading is in terms of pH. It's already moist. We're gonna put that probe down up in there. Now the average plants in your garden soil, that's what they're gonna love. That's that sweet spot of 6.7. That's our compost. You wanna rinse it off between every check. Now we're gonna go over here to our peat moss. We're gonna check our peat moss. And I don't even need this one there to check the peat moss because the peat moss is really soft. So we want to see what the pH reading of our peat moss is. You see how low that is? See that? And that's our peat moss. That's a 3.1. 3.1. The peat moss in our blueberry mix creates a buffering effect. And this is the beautiful part about this whole equation and how I put this mix together. And we're gonna check the pH of my tap water. Your city tap water has chloramine and chlorine in it. Now that's for our drinking purposes, and it removes a lot of contaminants in it. That's something that we really don't care for going into the garden. But what we want to do is check what the pH is. And the pH on your city tap water is going to be pretty high because you want an alkaline tap water going into your home. So this is going to be somewhere, I'm going to say around a 7.9 to a 8.2. So we'll take our hold off and we'll just drop this into our tap water. And she lands on an 8.2. We'll hold that. We already know that our tap water is an 8.2. That's alkaline. That is absolutely good for our tap water because our peat moss, which was a 3.1, 3.2, it's going to have a buffering effect on that pH of our tap water. So that tap water is not going to have any bearing on what our final mix is on our blueberry bush. So we'll take one of our blueberry bushes and we're going to check the pH on this. Now this has been in this pot for over a year and we've had a lot of leaching because of this slash that I did in there with my weed eater. But nonetheless, we're going to test the pH of the soil in here. We want this probe to be at least 4 inches in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of our city water. Now remember, our city water is at 8.2 because we need some moisture on that probe to get a reading. So even with our tap water being at 8.2, when that water touches that peat moss, it creates a buffering effect. That's where this plant gets its nutrients from, by the acidity of the soil here. So there's a chemical reaction that happens with all of this. And that's the beautiful part about this whole blueberry growing thing. You got 50% peat moss, 25% mini pine bark nuggets, and 25% of our compost, along with a quarter cup of our cottonseed meal. And that is the perfect combination for our blueberry bush. So like I said, we're gonna be uppotting this into a whole new substrate. So we're gonna be making our blueberry bush blend. But what we also wanna do is we're gonna go down and we're gonna do a check on our blueberry beds. We're gonna just water that in to make sure we're getting good soil contact. And we're gonna check our first bed, and this is our Bless Your Heart blueberry bush, and we just put this in last year. It's already taller than me. We're gonna go down here. We're gonna simply pull back our 2 inches or 3 inches of mini pine bark nuggets on top. We want that soil to have some moisture, and we're gonna take that probe down. And we're already at a 4.7, 4.8. And we're gonna lock that in. Lock that in, bring it out. This is one of our Hello Darlings right here. And this is the first year bush here. We just put this in last year. And this bush, I think we got 8 pounds off of it this year. So we're gonna go down and we're gonna do the same thing. Gonna make sure our soil is wet. And then we're gonna come down here and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna unlock it, brush back. See those roots all on the top? All those are roots, blueberry bush roots. You see how fibrous they are? Looks like spider webs. All the way out here. I'm gonna take this and we're gonna send that down into the soil. So we're 5.3. That's perfect within our range. Gonna lock that in, bring that out, bury that back. So remember, our soil should be anywhere from a 4.5 to a 5.5. So we're 5.3 here. And both of these bushes were put in last year. Now, that's the gist of what I want you to get out of this whole thing. We can go down and test each one of these beds and we're gonna fall within our range of that 4.5 to a 5.5. That means all of my blueberry bushes are optimized for the best growing conditions. So to make this equation as simple as possible, I got 4 1-gallon containers here. Each one of these containers represent 25, 25, 25, 25, 25. That's 25, 50, 75, 100. That equals our percentage that we're gonna be using for our mix. So what we need is 50% of our peat moss. So that's 25, 25, that's 50. So we need 2 of these filled up. And this is the formula that I use for mixing all my blueberry bushes. So whether it be 4 or 5-gallon buckets, 4, whatever it is that you have, long as you have equal parts of 4, this equation is gonna work every time. That's 25% of our mix. Okay. So there is 50% of our mix, and that's our peat moss. We only want 25% of our compost, so that represents 1 of these. There's our 25. So now we're 75%, 25, 50 in our peat moss, 25% of our compost. Our last 25% are going to be our mini pine bark nuggets. Like I said, the easiest way to do this is equal parts. So there we go. 50% of our peat moss is for that low acidity that we need. 25% of our compost. This is going to be where we get some of our nutrients from. And we also have life in this. This is where our bacteria and our fungi is. 25% of our mini pine bark nuggets, that's going to be for aeration. That's going to allow the water to seep through the soil mix. And not only that, as this breaks down, it also contributes to the acidity of the mix. Now, none of this means anything without something for the plants to feed on. This is my favorite, cottonseed meal. The cottonseed meal in this compost is going to give your plants that boost that it needs once in the spring, once in the fall. This is our fall feeding here. That's 6% nitrogen, 1% phosphorus, and 1% potassium. This, by far, has been the best for me in terms of my blueberry bushes. Now you can also use Berrytone. None of this stuff I'm promoting in this video here. Most of the time you can pick this up from Tractor Supply, Ace Hardware, or maybe an online vendor or something. But this to me is the perfect blend for my blueberry bush mix. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start mixing this in. Again, this is our 50% peat moss. If we're looking at 4 parts, that's 25%. This is our 50%. We want to make sure that we have our peat saturated. Take our mini pine bark nuggets. As it starts to break down, it also adds to the acidity of our mix. And then we have our compost, which is going to be our nutrients, our bacteria and fungi. Get a 1/4 cup of our cottonseed meal. So we're going to mix that in real good. Get a little more water in there. So we go over here, we'll bring our 3-gallon container. Again, I got these from Lowe's, and these are perfect for 2nd-year blueberry bushes. So we're gonna fill the bottom of our container. Bring a blueberry bush over here. And this is an O'Neill that's been getting abused. See that? Now what we want to do also, let's get this part out of here. We're gonna rough it up. You see all those fine hairs on the side? Those are your roots. You just have to take your hand and just rough the sides up. Just all the way around, just rough up the sides really good to break up those hairs. Even down at the bottom. Because we want to leave about 2 inches on the top. And the reason why we want that, you see we got about 2 inches here on the top, because we're going to fill that with our pine bark nugget mulch on the top. And then we'll just go ahead and fill around it. then we give it a shake to get that to settle in. You see how that root ball sitting on top? That's how you want that. That balanced out. Get all the air pockets out. We're gonna take our mini pine bark nuggets and we're gonna create a mulch over the top. That's gonna hold in that moisture. Take her out there, get her right here. Then we're gonna water in again. And she's gonna automatically start taking up those nutrients. So like I said, if you've been following the content, you know that I love my blueberry bushes. We're gonna get some more in the ground this year, but you're gonna see this baby, you can see all the new growth already starting to pop out where she was recovering already since we come back from vacation. So the last thing that we're gonna do is gonna come back and we're gonna check our pH to make sure that we are within our range. .1, 5.2. She's in a happy space. So if your blueberry bush is looking like this, don't fret. The right soil, the right fertilizer, correcting your pH, you can get it to look like this, growing out the box.